Welcome to P&G Tips. I'm Gary in Stockholm.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul in Barnsley. Welcome.
Hey, Paul. Oh yeah, I've got my P&G Tips mug, and this lives in my studio. So
Brilliant.
I've got all my some pens in there. I've got about 15 of these, like, or maybe not 15, like seven of these different types of mugs filled with pens and stuff. So
Might even make those available online on my Zazzle shop. We might try and sell some because we've got a few followers following
yeah,
this podcast.
I
Uh,
think it would be great. And remember, it can be used as a pen holder too. It's
yeah,
kind of fun.
perfectly practical. So we've decided that for our next episode, we'll try and get over some of our inspirations. We've made quite a few of these podcasts now. We've had nice comments about them. We know people follow them and listen to them. Hopefully, they'll save them and bookmark them. And I was thinking, well, you and I have also got bookmarks like that. We've been to conferences, we've been to picture book retreats, we've worked on lots of books. So that's where our experience comes from, that we can then relate to people. But I've also got hundreds, maybe thousands of bookmarks of illustrator, author pages where they go into detail about their work. So we thought what would be a nice idea is to pick maybe my top five and then your top five links on the internet where people can find rich resources. Same as me, have you got hundreds, if not thousands, bookmarked away?
Paul, I got so many different bookmarks and sources of inspiration. And, when we were preparing for this, it was like, oh, goodness, like which ones do we choose right away? And I thought, well, let's just choose five. And we'll do that maybe in the next episode. But then I was like, it reminded me of some of the things that I haven't been looking at.
Yeah.
And that opens up doors too. So it's kind of a good exercise to go through some of the things that have inspired you and then think of the things that are inspiring you now and maybe share some of those. So I was really glad when you suggested that we do this. I think it's an excellent idea and something maybe people haven't seen necessarily.
Hmm. And possibly we'll put all the links down below at the end of the video. And if anyone wants to share their links with us, they can maybe add comments to that. And we can be like a sharing hub for ideas. And I
Oh,
think
that's a great idea. Yeah.
as author illustrators, we've got drawers full of ideas waiting for some extra inspiration. So we might log on to someone else's website and follow a thread that they've done. I thought, that's where mine could go off to. So all these little sparks of creativity and inspiration, I think, are invaluable. So I'm going to share screens with you, and
All right.
we're going to go into the first one. And these are not necessarily ranked in any order, apart from these amongst my top five. But amongst these is one of my all-time favorites. So when we come to that, I'll tell you about it. So this one,
Yeah.
I need to give a bit of background. dPictus, even now, it's a bit hard for me to get my head around what this is. But I first came across it, if you look across the menu at the top, Picture Book Makers, which is an online resource for the finest picture books throughout Europe, usually. Although when I've researched it, it's actually created by two brothers in the UK, a platform where agents and publishers can share the very best of the work. Because when I've traveled abroad, especially into Europe, and going to a bookshop, I think, oh wow, there's so much more diversity and so many more edgy books and challenging books that I don't think in the UK they would get published. They fall out of that mainstream that the UK is interested in publishing. Don't know about if that's the same in Sweden. They've got little independent bookshops that have got a breadth of art and writing there.
Yeah, there's definitely a tradition here of children's books, of course, with Astrid Lindgren and others, Elsa Beskow and other picture book, especially yeah, both writers and illustrators. So definitely, and it expands into the rest of Europe, but it's also a very open community for children's work, which is fantastic. And there are definitely things that you find here that you don't necessarily find in the US or the UK.
Yeah.
So 100%. And I think dPictus, I think the first time that I heard of them was when we were in Bologna. I didn't
Mm.
know about dPictus at all, but we saw their booth in Bologna. One of our friends was had a book that was being exhibited at their
Yeah.
booth there. And I was like, oh, this is super interesting. And I enjoyed going back there and checking out, if you want to call it like in that context, it was like these up and coming books and up and coming artists and writers.
Yeah, that's true. And so Depictus is a platform where there's lots of things happening. The picture book makers, which we're going to get to next, I'll just go on to the next screen. Well, that tells you about the Depictus platform, who's using it, why they're using it. They have curated exhibitions, like you've mentioned. Our friend Tita Barredo had her book, The Dress, included in the exhibition in Bologna. That's not where I first heard of it. That reminded me that somewhere in the background of my mind, I knew about picture book makers. I'd not realized it was connected with Depictus. So, Picture Book Makers is a fantastic resource. Just on that site itself, there's a list of illustrators and authors, and you can go through them one by one, and they've written about what their inspirations are and maybe how they've come about to create one particular book. So, if you just click on Elena Breslina, for example, you get to see more of her work and read about how she approaches her work. And there's hundreds of illustrators on there. And in the middle, you can see there's two books. So they also publish the best of these. Maybe they take 12 every so often and they'll publish an annual with these people's work in. They also do the top 100 outstanding picture books curated collection exhibition. So if you want to immerse yourself in books other than what you find in the UK or wherever you're based, whatever country you're based in, I highly recommend this site. And so these,
One thing oh, sorry,
oh,
Paul.
go
I just
on.
wanted to say one thing for people who are watching this. When we say the best, we mean like their favorites. So
Yeah,
you might be a fantastic picture book creator and you have a chance to get in there too. So don't feel like an inhibition if you're not on this site or not published or whatever it is. You can get there. So I just want to say that as
yeah,
a little inspiration for people. Go for it, you know.
that's a good point. That's a good point. So these are some of those favorited books. And then collecting those together, they published two of these books. I'd seen the first one with John Classen on the front, and that includes John Classen, Sean Tan, Chris Horton, Manuel Marisol. Some of those I've still not heard of and not seen their work. So those two books are worth tracking down as well. So that's my first link, and that's just massive just by itself. You could spend weeks and weeks on there researching, getting inspiration for your own books. The second one on my list is something that I'm a member of, children'sillustrators.com, which is an online portfolio. That's how it first started. So you pay to have your work put on there. It costs 350. It's based in the UK, but the subscription is $350. So I'm not sure why it's in dollars. There must be some American connection. But this is their front page. So they have a featured illustrator, illustrator of the month, illustrator of the week. And I've heard from people at conferences and picture book retreats, editors, agents, saying that they go on there and use this as a resource for finding new work. And I've had work from this. I've been on here for about 10 years now. So in the portfolio directory, there are hundreds and hundreds of illustrators on there. Illustrators and author illustrators. There aren't any purely writers on there at the moment. That's my or part of my portfolio on there. And you're not limited to the number. I think it is unlimited. So you can upload as much work as you like, video, animation, or stills. And then there's also a section about me. So you can put biography details, keep feeding news items. So if I've got another book out or I've been to some event or I've got a commission, then you can keep updated with that. That maybe with the algorithm pushes you onto that front page so that you're featured as an illustrator. But what is also useful, apart from seeing lots of other people's work, are their interviews. So they've got
Mm.
interviews with all the people across the industry, publishers, agents, editors, illustrators themselves, because I did an interview on there. So again, I know that the industry use this site. So even if you're not on there with a portfolio, go and have a look round and find out what agents and publishers are looking for at the moment. So again, just one link, but keep going back to that. I'm sure that will be really valuable.
Yeah, super inspiring. I'm going to check it out a little bit more. I think I have heard of it, but I haven't actually gone through it. Sometimes, you go through these like agency sites, like Bright Agency or whatever, and you
Mhm.
start to look through it all the inspiring illustration, but I haven't really spent any time like diving into this. So I'll do that. Thank you.
Worth checking out. I'm not sure if this was recommended from you, Gary. The Jeremy Vickery works in the film industry, movie industry. He's worked on lots of top movies as a lighting advisor and artist and illustrator and set designer. He's got a paid subscription channel on YouTube, but he's got so many free videos and he's so generous with his time and the way that he explains things. And lighting is key in so many things for mood, for focus, for interest. So he really breaks it down and gives you practical tips on how to light some of your scenes better and how to light throughout if you're doing a storyboard, how light and colour can create that pace and tempo that you're after. So I'll just look at a couple of his, not going to look at a video of his today, but well worth checking out. Just simple things. And this actually echoes with something you've told me that is going to be in your top five links about plein air painting and just looking and observing, going out and painting, or just setting up your own little still life and looking at what you're looking at, the color, the form, and then maybe lighting it differently to see what happens with the shadows and the light. And just those four simple panels of a piece of sky, it sets the pace for the book. If you're wanting a nice calm day, top left hand corner, you probably use that. Maybe you can imagine wind. But when you move over to these stormy colours on the right, they change the mood of whatever you're looking at and the feel. So Jeremy
Definitely.
explains how and why to do this.
Definitely. One of the things I've got, one of these books from Pixar, and it talks about the color, the color. I think I've shown it to you before. Maybe we've
Yes.
talked about it before. But it's so interesting to see this example here because even within one story, we think, okay, well, there's character development, there's, making something interesting in terms of setting and all this kind of stuff. But just using the color and lighting to create a change is also an important part of both a picture book and a film. And it can be really interesting just to see this. It might give you inspiration, like, oh yeah, I'm starting out with something that's very bright, and then I'm going into this kind of like more dark feeling, and then I'm brightening it up again, for instance.
Mhm.
And that just that knowing that's something that people are thinking about can help us to create better um, overall arches in our story. So, this isn't just the character development or the plot or any of that. It's also the color as well and the lighting. So just to name that.
It's one other facet of picture book creating that you've got to think about and bear in mind. And as you've just said, knowing about it is one thing, knowing how to bring that about is another. And exactly what you've just been talking about in this next slide.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Top left hand corner, nothing wrong with that picture. Well, it's a sketch, not a finished illustration, but you can see, I think this is a set design from Ratatouille. Nothing wrong with that top left picture. The rats on the platform talking to all the other rats. Everything is there that you need, the information in that picture. But just look what you can do with it if you know how to dramatically light it. Brings your focus and your attention in, and the mood just draws you into the picture. It's just that much more exciting. And all through my career, I've always yearned for learning how to do that kind of thing. Knowing that, yeah, that picture top left, it's flat. What can I do with that? You just put a halo around that main rat. But no, you bring you imagine it like a movie director, I think. That's how
Mm.
you would light real characters. That's how you light CG. So I think that's so informative. And Jeremy goes on to explain how to do that. So that's the important thing. What he also does is films that he's worked on, he will deconstruct them and he'll go around with his color picker. This is in Photoshop, the top left hand, the color wheel. Goes around with his color picker, sampling colors and saying what you think you're seeing is maybe the bright ginger hair of that chef, for example. But when you break and when you look at it and isolate it, because it's offset by the other colors, it's not as bright as you imagine, what you perceive.
Mm.
And that's more true in this one because the painting left, the bottom left there on the left, is made up of various greys. But you imagine that there's the green sort of sage bottom left. Above that, there's a warmer colour. The trees in the background are a paler green, but there's hardly any green in there. When those are sampled, they're all based on shades of grey. And it's understanding how to move those greys around. If you slap some bright green in there, which you might do
Yeah,
as,
it'd be
as a
shocking.
novice, it's just not going to work. And you might just leave it there and not realize that something's wrong with that. So it's understanding the subtleties of putting together these color spaces that I think is absolutely incredibly valuable.
Yeah,
And
that's interesting, Paul. I just want to jump into when you see that picture because it's one thing that I have learned a lot about in terms of working with this kind of thing, and that's working with values. And maybe we can have a whole episode on how we work with values because when I see this, it's exactly that. And by working with values, we can create a lot of emotion and effect, and also make pictures that are relatable. But it's almost demands for us to dive into that in a deeper way, like he's doing, obviously, in this example. That if you're just working with grays, you can actually create what seems like color
mm,
by working with the values themselves.
I always remember when I was at Liverpool Polytechnic doing illustration and graphic design. And after the first 12 months, the principal gave us a review, sat down, and he said, Paul, like your work, you're coming on well, but you use too much local colour.
Mm.
And I didn't question him then. I thought, what? So I went away and thought, what does it mean? Learnt about that. And that's what you do as a novice. You want red in your picture, you put red in your picture, even if it shines out and takes over everything. So as well as deconstructing images like that, Jeremy helps you build from scratch an image like that. So you really get underneath the skin of what he's talking about. So the next link of mine, and this is probably my all-time favorite, Books for Keeps, an independent children's book magazine, the best one in the UK, could be the only one now. I think it was published by the School Bookshop Association originally, decades back, and then they became absorbed. But it's now its own business, booksforkeeps.com. And it used to be an actual print magazine. I remember listening to the radio. I think I was decorating years back, listening to Radio 4, and they interviewed someone saying, "Oh, we're starting this new magazine, Books for Keeps, for children's books." So I
Mm.
literally rang up and I subscribed to it. So I subscribed to the print magazine decades ago. I've got them all on the shelf here. And then they went digital. So if you look down at the bottom in the middle, in the orange bar, you can download it to your device. You can have it on your iPad. Every month, you can have the full magazine on your iPad for nothing. It's free now, which is just an
Wow.
incredible resource. So every month, they've got an author interview, Christopher Edge this time, or Windows into Illustration. Petra Horacek, one of my favorite illustrators, is in that month. They really shine with book reviews. They often have a theme for book reviews, whether it's Halloween or birthdays or giving or diversity. And they'll do lots of book reviews, and then they'll break them down into categories like books for under five, books 5 to 8, right through into teens. Really thorough. Does have advertisements in from publishers, but then that's interesting because we can see what publishers are bringing out, what's coming out for
Mm.
the next book fair, or whatever. And that's the first ever one. That's off their archive online. But I still remember that one. So 1980 March. So
Wow.
the orthograph illustrator orthograph was Quentin Blake. So I often just dip back onto the shelf and take one to read. That's the downside, actually. When it was a print magazine, I could carry it about, stick it in a bag, read it wherever. Now
Mm.
that it's downloaded, I'm not sure where I've downloaded it. I could always go back to the website. I don't read them as often. The last
Yeah.
six issues, I've part read most of them, where I used to really pore over the actual print magazine. So that's incredible.
Mm.
And they've um, what do you call it when you catalog all the names that have been in there? So everyone that's had a
Mm.
mention, you can click on that name and find from what issue it is, what year it is. And that's not all the M's. That's just one section of the M names. So there's thousands and thousands of illustrators and authors on there. So again, an incredible resource.
Wow. I'm going to check that out. I've never come across it, to be honest, until you just mentioned it.
Oh
So
wow.
I'm really happy, or until I saw your research. So I'm really looking forward to diving in there.
You'll have a
Um,
treat there then, looking back
yeah,
and
yeah.
going through some and just reading about how people work. I suppose similar to that picture makers with the authors, but this going back decades, there's that many more on there.
Yeah, and also seeing like the trends and the movement. I mean, you're starting with Quentin Blake in the 80s, and now what can happen through time. And
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to diving into that archive. So thank you.
They keep a tap on what's happening in the industry, what's happening when there's bills in Parliament that influence and affect the publishing industry. I remember when the net book agreement was dropped. There's a big furore about that, of course, and that was all documented in there.
Mm.
So you could spend the rest of all next year just reading those four. The last one of mine is probably a bit more frivolous, but just as valuable. You'll know that when you've been at Picture Book Retreat with me, I've had story sticks as story prompt ideas, where you've got objects, characters, adjectives, situations written on sticks. Throw them down, and you get various permutations to kickstart and give you inspiration for stories. Well, I bookmarked this a while back. Joel Hefner is apparently an ex-teacher and a cross-country runner, and he said that with stories and with running, it's the first steps that are the most important,
Mm.
which makes sense. So, if you don't have any other method of coming up with new ideas and you are stuck for an idea, have a look at this daily writing prompts. The
And
one,
yeah,
go
go
on.
ahead.
The one that
I
is
was going to say
showing
something.
here.
We got like that news delay. No, I was going to say one thing. Like it's also a really wonderful thing. Like that I noticed. Like when you do your workshop on this, it's just a great practice. Even if you're not like feeling stuck and you want to get unstuck, it doesn't have to be like that. It can also be just a playful
Yes,
thing to
yeah.
do. Yeah. So I
It,
just wanted to say, be playful all the time. It's just great, And even if it never is anything, it just like opens up the motors.
Absolutely, it can be really silly and may not be practical and lead to anything. But from my story sticks, I have actually had a few story threads that I've followed through, and one that's still ongoing. So on this site, there are 8.3 billion permutations built into this engine that
Wow.
he's built. So we're looking at the simple mode. It says at the top, there's an advanced mode, which I've not even yet tried. But just with the simple mode, a robot at school plants something, he's scared and hears a bell or finds a bell. In my mind, in your mind, that will have kickstarted some images or visuals, and in writers, some ideas. So you can just follow that through, mix and match. So I think that's a great one just to have a play around with. And there's also an image inspiration site where he throws up random images with some, well, not random sayings that are connected with the images. I'm not sure how many of those there are. Those are just two that I picked off. But again, if you're doing events with kids in school, this would be brilliant for starting them off thinking about some new story ideas. But often kids don't need that. Kids have got wacky ideas straight away.
Yeah.
So it's maybe authors and writers like ourselves that occasionally need that little bit of creative inspiration. So that is the last of mine of those five, not my five top 10, but five of my favorite links. So all those links will be in the comments at the bottom. And hopefully you'll bookmark PGTips, our site, so you can use that in future. And we'll build on that. We'll do five of yours next time. And as I said,
Yeah.
maybe people can share some of those as well, that some of theirs with us as well.
Yeah, it would be great if you have some inspiration to just put it in the comments, and everyone can benefit from this because it's one of those things that when we share inspiration, we just like lighting the candles of others. So I think it's a fantastic thing to do.
Nice idea. And I'm already looking forward to yours because you've given me a sneak preview, one that I've not heard of before about street art. And there's a map directory you can find out what art is in your area. So wow, let's get working on that soon.
All right, yeah, we'll do that right after the new year. We'll get this out right away, and then after the holidays, we'll have another one with five more of these inspirational sites to go to.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks, Gary, and bye everyone. See you next time.
Bye, everyone. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.